And we are live. All right, everyone, welcome to Release Day celebration with all our lovely authors. I'm going to introduce our lovely moderator, author Tracey Livesay, and her latest release is Like Lovers Do. And as you should purchase all of everyone's books, don't forget our moderator also has a wonderful book as well. All right, and I'm going to say goodbye and have a wonderful time.
Thank you, Marissa. Well, yay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to be here with our wonderful authors, Lorraine Heath, Vivienne Lorret, and Diana Quincy. I'm going to read a brief intro for all of them, and then we will get into the questions. Feel free, if you have questions during the discussion, to, I guess, type them in, and we will get to as many as we can at the end of the program. So I'm going to start with best-selling author Lorraine Heath once wrote training manuals and computer code, but something was always missing. When she read a romance novel, she became not only hooked on the genre, but quickly realized what her writing lacked: rebels, scoundrels, and rogues. She's been writing about them ever since. Love it. Best-selling author Diana Quincy is a former television journalist who decided she'd rather make up stories where a happy ending is always guaranteed. Diana grew up all over the world as the daughter of a United States Foreign Service officer. Since her 2013 debut, Diana's books have landed on annual best of lists in Library Journal and the Washington Post. Diana is now happily settled in Virginia, but still gets the itch to explore far-off places. When she's not bent over her laptop, Diana reads, practices yoga, and plots her next travel adventures. USA Today bestselling author Vivienne Lorret transforms copious amounts of tea into words. She is an Avon author of works including the Wallflower Wedding series, the Rakes of Fallow Hall series, the Seasons original series, the Misadventures and Matchmaking series, and the Mating Habits of Scoundrels. And so, yeah, those are our authors. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
We're going to have a good time. I have good questions, and I know our audience are going to have good questions too. So let's get started. I want to first say that I had the pleasure of reading all of your books, and they were all amazing. And the thing that I really enjoyed is that while they gave me the thing I love about historical romance. So the settings, the drama, the emotion, and I do like the ballroom tone stuff. I like that. So your books gave me that, but they were also different in that they explored different themes and like different settings that I hadn't really seen or heard before. And so I was really sort of excited to read those things. And I think after our talk, all of the fans will be excited to pick up copies of your book as well. Are y'all hearing that?
Yeah.
What that is. Okay, now it's gone. Okay, wow, that exciting. We're just gonna roll with it.
To find the beeping of a fire alarm in your house.
Yeah.
Battery starts going.
Okay, so we will start with Lorraine. So tell us about Beauty Tempts the Beast with Benedict and Althea, aka Ben and Thea, aka Beast and Beauty.
So this is a beautiful cover that I got for this book. So this is the 6th book in the Sins for All Seasons series, and Beast True Love is the final character to have a story in this series. And the series is based on a group of children born out of wedlock who were all raised by the same woman. And so they all have very different beginnings, and they all have different reasons for why they were given to her. And Beast has always had a protective streak. He prowls the Whitechapel at night, helping anybody who's in trouble. And he runs into Althea. And Althea is the daughter of a duke, but her family has lost everything. And so she comes, she wants to get back into society, and she thinks the way to do it is to become someone's mistress. But she doesn't know how to do that. And since Beast protects people, she asks him to teach her how to become a seductress. And that's a request that he's never had before. And so it just kind of leads to one adventure after another as they both realize that the things they thought they wanted aren't necessarily the things that they needed.
That's true. I really enjoyed Beast as a hero because he wasn't sort of, I guess, would you say, the typical hero. He was so kind and nurturing, which was really, I thought, interesting. And obviously there's a play on sort of the whole beauty and the Beast trope. And when I think of him, I think about, the cartoon, like when Beast is, he's this, huge, beast, and then he's, eating, and Belle looks at him because he's going like this, and then he tries to take the spoon and be delicate. And that's sort of what I thought about Beast. Like, he's this big guy. He's, like you described, his hands like ham hocks, and he has this presence, and yet he's so nurturing and so gentle and so caring. And I really sort of enjoyed that about him. When you started this series, did you plan out the True Love children in advance? So did you know that was Beast's characteristic, or did that happen later in the process?
When he first walked onto the page in the first book, he kind of walked on with that sort of presence about him. Throughout the series, he doesn't appear a lot in the books, but he is the one that each of his siblings goes to when they have a problem. And he's the one who, he's quiet, but he's very intuitive, and he sees things that others don't. Mm-hmm. And in each book, he just makes one sentence that helps them resolve their issue. He makes them look at their situation very different. And so he just kind of was always like that.
Yeah, and you said that sort of like in the book, I think, as well, that's his personality. And while all of them had different personalities, he was the one that sort of sat back and watched. And when he gave an opinion, everyone was like, "Oh, of course, he would know it, or he would have it." I really enjoyed that. And did you know also that you were going to do that mix of aristocracy with regular people? Was that something you'd wanted to touch on?
I did. I didn't see his story fully until I got to his story. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't sure what exactly was going to happen. I knew parts of what his story were. And so the parts that I thought I knew, I didn't allude to in the other books, because I thought by the time I get to book 6, it might change. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to set anything up, but I kind of had an idea where his story was going to go.
Okay. And I guess I'm trying to talk about it in a way, because it is release day for all of you. I don't want to give away, any of the, the surprises or things that happen. Like, we want people to pick up their own copies and be transported and learn those things themselves. So I'm trying to be sort of very circumspect about what I ask, but still, let people know that get to be excited about the stories. And so speaking of that, you mentioned that this is the last book in the series, but there are other people who possibly have stories coming up. So is that an entirely new series? Do we have a name for that series? Can you tell us about that yet, or?
Yes, actually. So in this last book, Althea has two brothers that the readers will meet. And Griff will start the next series, the Once Upon a Dukedom, and his book is Scoundrel of My Heart.
Okay.
And
yeah, really excited about that. You guys, we're not rushing Beast and Thea's story, but just to know there's more wonderful Lorraine coming. So thank you, Lorraine. We will come back. So we're going to move on to Vivienne. Hi, Vivienne. How are
Hello?
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I wanted to tell you that I adore your cover. I love the striking red of her dress against that white snowy background. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. So
I think that Avon should send me that dress in my size.
they should.
Yes.
They really should. And also, the hero, maybe the cover model,
Just to pose with
Him
me for a
too.
picture or
yes,
something.
he could deliver the dress and then,
Yes.
whatever, happens.
That's
But tell us about Jane and Raven and My Kind of Earl.
Well, if you read The Road to Ruin, Raven first appeared in that story. And that was in a previous series, The Misadventures in Matchmaking. And so he was a hero with a dark past that he never talked about. And so we meet him again in this book, and he's entering a brothel for a night's entertainment, as do. And he just happens to run into a blue stocking who is there doing some research for a very important book she's writing on the marriage habits of the native aristocrats, but they end up finding out more about the mating habits of scoundrels by the end of it. So
that's good. I mean, that's a really good tantalizing description. But it's just the beginning. It's sort of just the beginning of what we go into. When you first introduced Raven, did you know that you were going to play on this sort of Tarzan? Did I read that? That mean that's obvious, the Tarzan Jane theme, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you know that sort of who he was? And
I hoped that he would get a story. I planted him in The Road to Ruin so that he would get a story. And it was honestly all the readers and the fans that were at Avon KissCon who approached my editor and said, let her write the story. So that's why the book is dedicated to all of them.
yeah, you did. You dedicated the book to them. So thank you, fans. See,
Yes.
your voice matters, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it actually does work out and you get what you want. So that was pretty good. I loved Jane as a character. I mean, writing a blue stocking heroine isn't like we've read those, they are I guess a staple in historical romance. But what I loved about Jane was that she was really the protagonist of your story. Like, she moved the action forward. If it wasn't for the things that she did, no, I don't think anything would have happened, because he just would have continued on his life. He thought that things were great the way they are and that he had achieved something. And yet it was through Jane's actions that moved the story. She was constantly making decisions that moved them further along. And I love that about her. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you were thinking with Jane?
She's a little bit more determined than for her own good. And but she's the oldest, so I went by like a classic sibling order. If you think about the oldest sibling is always the one who kind of knows it all, follow my lead, we can get this done, or, no standing around, let's do this. So that's Jane. She wants to get things done. She has no idea why he's so hesitant, why he would be satisfied with where he is when he could have so much more. So yes, she's like, well, we can find answers. There's always a way to find answers. So she finds the mark on his arm, and she has a photographic memory, but this is before the word photographic memory existed. So she calls it a mnemonic sketchbook in her head. So she knows she's seen this mark before, and she just can't figure out where it is. So she's kind of this absent-minded professor. At the same time, she's like, well, I know I've seen it. I'm really determined. You're going to have to just follow my lead and come along with me. And if she had a leash, she would probably put him on a leash.
Yeah, and if he would just, like he kept fighting, this is what heroes do. He keeps fighting against what she's telling him. And I'm just like, if you would just do what she says, it would just be easier for all of us. You're going to get there anyway. Like you're just do it. But, he had to put up a fight, and it's okay. It's fine. This is the second book in that trilogy. So does the third book in the trilogy also sort of follow a theme, or does it take on a classic story?
It's not like a Tarzan in London where it's a new, like a play on that.
Mm-hmm.
The third book is a love triangle. So that's why it's called The Wrong Marquis.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie has been in love, and she's been in love with the same character in book 1 and book 2. And so we're familiar with her love for him. And in book 3, this other guy keeps getting in the way. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yes, you do get to to meet Ellie. The other thing that I really liked about the story and about Jane, you talked about she's the oldest. She's the oldest of how many?
She's the oldest of 11.
Of 11. And that house is like insane. I love that. I love the, like all of the sort of the little kids just like taking over. I love the toboggan down the stairs. I don't think that's a spoiler alert, but it's just like this madhouse that she sort of runs. And that was entertaining. And it was interesting to see how Raven was going to deal with, with all of that. So it was wonderful. I really enjoyed that. So thank you, Vivienne.
Thank you.
We will come back.
Okay.
Hi, Diana, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. We were talking about covers. And so one that was interesting about your cover, yes, is that I was trying to remember.
Oh, I don't have a manicure, sorry, here you go.
Okay. The last time I saw a cover with the hero that didn't have like flowing locks, like his or not. And I was actually really kind of hot. And then I saw, or I think lots of us have seen, that you have sort of profiled your cover model on social media.
I sure did. Boy, was that a lot of fun, let me tell you.
You want to tell us a little bit about Paul?
He's gorgeous.
Yes.
As you can tell, here we go. Wait, can you see? Wait, I'm so bad at this.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
But that's not even a good picture of him, honestly. He's better looking than that. So I reached out to him. In my day job, I'm a journalist. So the easiest promo for me is to interview somebody. So I ran him down, and he was a little reluctant, but I sent him the questions. And since I didn't ask the boxers or brief question, he was willing. I asked questions like, do you have to use breath mints? Have you worked with a model with bad breath? Are you attracted to the model when you're doing so he was so much fun. And he sent me a picture of him holding the book that I used to catch people's attention today. So this is my debut. I don't have the kind of platform as these two ladies, so I had to resort to alternative measures.
We do what we have to.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a tough job, but somebody had to do it.
Yeah. he was very charming in like the snippets that I watched. So that was
Very self-deprecating.
yes,
Just much fun.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, with a face like that, I mean, personality.
And body.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so enough about that. So tell us about Her Night with the Duke with Leela and Hunt.
So I have finally written a romance that I can actually do an elevator pitch for. Usually I can't really do an elevator pitch. Well, I can tell the story in 4 points. So a duke in disguise comes to the aid of an adventurous widow at a country inn when they're both stranded there in a rainstorm, and she has to fend off ruffians who get a little too close to her. They share a passionate night and go their separate ways. The next day, they find out that he is about to become engaged to her beloved stepdaughter, and scandal ensues. So that's pretty much all you need to know.
I didn't know how you were going to do that one. I didn't know how you were going to get out of that one. That one was, yeah, I was like, I have to see. The thing that I loved about it is it felt like an adventure story because it starts like an adventure. Like she's like Indiana Jones, like she comes in, you know, in a rainstorm, and she's the only woman in this place with ruffians, you know, and of course guys see an attractive woman and by herself, and they, you know, think that she needs company, and she takes care of herself like very well. It was great, and that sort of set the trend for the book in terms of her being able to take care of herself, but also this feeling of adventure. Like the book just felt like you were just going from one adventure to the next, which I really, really enjoyed. Was that part of your thinking as you were crafting it?
I mean, there's not, to my mind, there's not a lot of adventure on the page, but she is a traveling, she is half Arab. She is the daughter of an Arab merchant mother and immigrant merchant mother, and a English white marquis. So she's sort of between like two worlds. Her mother sort of left her Arab relatives to raise the daughter and the son in a very white aristocratic world because she didn't think they could meld the two identities together. So once she is widowed, she wants to travel. And so she goes to the Middle East, what was then called the Levant. That entire area was called Greater Syria. And so she sort of connects with her relatives, and she writes travelogues about her adventures. So I forgot the question.
Oh no, that was it. Like, I mean, even when like your descriptions of things were so descriptive, and again, I don't want to give away things that there's that sound. I don't want to give away things that happen, but you sort of from your descriptions put you in places. It feels just so lush and wonderful. So I enjoyed that, and I am going to come back to your heroine in a second. The other thing that I liked and enjoyed was the one night stand, because you typically don't see that in historical romances, because the heroines are usually saving, you know, their virtue. So they may be some little stuff in the beginning, but this was a full one night stand that, you know, you see in contemporaries a lot, and I really enjoyed that, and that was because she was a widow, right?
She'd only ever been with her husband. She was kind of lonely being on the road. They have this incredible attraction. They figure, you know, we'll see each other for one night, we'll enjoy each other, we'll go our separate ways, and we'll never see each other again. But of course that doesn't happen. So yeah.
And as you mentioned, she's half Arab and half white. And you really explore sort of what that means during that time period and what that would mean. So even though she has the title and should have what comes with it, she also has to deal with a lot of racism. And was that something that you wanted to sort of write about or put in your novel?
I wanted to write a very traditional Regency historical that people would enjoy. It's going to give readers everything they expect in a Regency. But I wanted to texture it. I was getting, when I was thinking about a series to write, I felt like I was sort of in a rut. I wasn't excited about any possibility. And then I thought, well, what if I did a little bit of a diverse heroine? And then it, that added a texture to the story. Her getting in touch with her relatives. She kind of cusses in Arabic. She, learns dirty words in Arabic. And so it was just fun to sort of insert that. I also wanted to insert, I think people have a stereotype of Arabs, particularly Arab women, as very docile, very downtrodden, controlled by, the terrible men in their lives, forced to wear headscarves. So I really wanted to make a kick-ass,
Yes, she is.
partially Arab heroine who goes after what she wants and ultimately gets it.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like too is, as you're sort of showing or exploring what it would be like in that situation. I mean, it's just sort of another way of showing sort of how strict that society is, because you have a subplot where another couple is ostracized, and it's not about race. It's just like there are these rules, and if you don't follow these rules, you're shunned. And
I mean, and I think, they're not like these overtly racist. They're just sort of small, everyday kind of slights.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to hit people over the head with it. It made her character, I think, it gave her character some interesting aspects.
Right. And I don't think you hit readers over the head. I think sort of what she dealt with felt true, like that would be what she would deal with. But then again, she also sort of had the power and privilege of her position, and you didn't shy away from that either. So yes. So I hope sort of listening to all three those sort of mini discussions got you all excited about these books. They are wonderful. They really are. So they are on sale now. Get your copies. They're amazing. You won't regret it. I promise you. So yeah, yes. Show the covers.
That is a beautiful cover.
It is. It's striking. So I mentioned at the top the idea that the romances were different, and that you sort of, again, stepped outside of the ballroom and you showed sort of different parts of life. So you talked about Lorraine, Ben's business, which I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, what that is, and what happened to Thea, but that takes us sort of outside of the ballroom. Raven's working at a club. When we first meet him, he's going to enjoy some other things, but he does work at a club when we meet him. And then Leela is working. And then there was also some secondary characters like Hunt's secretary. And so a lot of your story, while they're still touching on, the aristocracy and royals and all that stuff, really does sort of explore what other social stratus is going through. Is that a trend that we're seeing? Lorraine, do you want to, is that a trend?
That's me. That noise?
Is it the mic? I don't know. I wonder if you took it off, if it would make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. We'll see.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, thank you. So I don't know if it's necessarily a trend. That was the question, right?
Right. Or is it just something you wanted to explore?
Yeah, I just find it interesting to, I find the aristocracy, particularly the men in the aristocracy, a challenge to write, because for a lot of them, they've had such an easy life. And so I find it, I enjoy writing characters who aren't necessarily in the aristocracy, who, if they are in the aristocracy, then they're faced with really big challenges. So that it's more than just, you know, attending ballrooms. And there's just such a broad area of different things during that time period that can be explored. I mean, just looking at the differences between our 3 books, you know, they all touch on different aspects of that time period without being focused on the aristocracy and the ballrooms and that sort of, and I think that there's just a lot that we can write about.
Yeah, it's like you see a whole different world. Vivienne, you want to, like, your interest or in exploring other than the ballroom?
Yeah, like Lorraine said, I don't think it's a trend per se, but I do like to see what's outside, and I wanted to focus on for Raven. I wanted to focus on his preconceived notions of what he saw in the aristocracy, as opposed to what it would have been with the people who didn't frequent the club that he worked at. So he didn't see, I don't think, the best side of the aristocracy. He just saw the naughty side, and he thought they were all just like that. And I thought it was nice just to kind of show the possibility that there could have been something else, something to respect, you know, that he wouldn't look down upon so much. So I tried to do that. It was a little difficult because it's such an easy way to go and just to make everybody naughty, you know? I mean, this is a romance. We want.
I totally think you did. And different discussion if we were having this discussion like in a month. So, you know, I would, there are things we could to talk about, but I think you did you did it. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think you did that. And I think readers will see that things could have been different. That, I don't want to say too much, but yeah. And Diana, you did the same thing too. Is that something that you?
Well, you know, this was my, maybe my 12th book. I've also written some Regency historical mystery, and I wanted to bring, just something different, a different flavor to it. So that's why it's been fun. It sort of made it more interesting for me. It was a new challenge. It wasn't easy to find research regarding this group of people in Regency England. But it was just nice to just do something different and to vary. I mean, you're always going to have the dukes and you're always going to have the earls. And, I don't think you're going to have a genre without the aristocracy. But it's nice to sort of bring in these other characters to diversify the world. And I think it makes it richer and more interesting for readers and for the authors who write it.
I totally agree, because, as a reader reading them, like you said, there were 3 different stories, 3 different worlds. And again, the aristocracy was there, and I'm happy because I do like those things about it. Lorraine, is she coming?
She said she's going to pop off, and I think she's going to pop back on.
Okay.
Because of the buzzing.
Got it. But yeah, like they were there and I enjoyed it, but I also really did enjoy seeing sort of like the other parts, like just seeing a full picture of that time. It was really, really interesting. So this one, I think, is an easy question. It's about your process. Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? What does it look like when you sit down to write? I don't know if you guys remember that movie She-Devil with Meryl Streep and Roseanne Barr from the 80s. Meryl Streep was a romance novelist, and she walked around in flowing dresses and pink boas, and she had Pool Boy, and she would write in her garden, like
That's my life exactly.
I figured. I thought people might be interested in knowing that that's exactly what it's like when you are writing your book. So would you, tell us sort of what your process is like, and when you sit down to write, what does it look like? Vivienne, do you want to start?
Well, when I sit down to write, the first thing that I make sure I have is a giant mug of tea. It's about this big. And it's probably about 2 cups worth of tea. And I have about 3 of those in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So, and then I have another one in the afternoon. So,
Is it decaf?
it is not decaf. No, not at all.
Wow. For you.
It's what keeps me alive, really. That's my DNA, I think. So you'll find out I'm just like part chai. You just draw the blood. I'm just chai. But yeah, it's I sit in the lotus position, and I drink my tea, and I stare at the screen, and I stare at the screen, and then I wait for the caffeine to take hold, and I start to put the words on the page.
So do you plot anything in advance, or like you said, you just wait for the words and things to come to you?
I have a 3-act structure. So I have the first parts, and then the character arcs, and some basic idea of what scenes will happen. So I'll have like probably 4 scenes plotted out for each act. But of course, there's a lot more than 12 scenes in the whole book. But like the important things are there. I just have to, I have to probably be better at putting it all together before.
No, your process is your process, right? I spend so much time trying to do other people's process, and I think we just embrace our process, and so it's obviously working. So it's all good. Diana,
Keep your fingers crossed.
I used to be, before I sold, I was a pantser, because why not? But I think the more books I wrote, the more I had to plot it out. Now, sometimes it diverges, but I sort of have to have an idea of where it's going. The first 2 or 3 or 4 chapters are easy. And then I think this is now my process, according to my friend. And then I'm miserable for about a month, and I'm not sure where the story's going, and I'm so blocked. And I guess the 3rd time after this happened, my friend told me, I think this is your process. So I guess that's my process. And then, somewhere it starts to flow, and then, I go back and insert good stuff. I'm not nearly as organized as it is. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, what was her name? What was her family? What was, I should be much more organized than I am. So
I'm totally not organized. I'm totally not organized. I wish I were, but I have to go back. It takes me forever. I have lots of misery. I have months of misery.
There's Lorraine.
Sorry, did that stop the noise?
Didn't we have it when she wasn't here too?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop feeling guilty then.
Yes, don't feel guilty. No, it's okay.
Thought it was me.
No. We were just talking about process. And so Diana, where do you write?
Here. So This is my home office, and I'm not going to show you that part because I took all the mess and threw it over there so that the illusion of a nice organized office is behind me. But this used to be where all the kids, like old instruments came to die and the old furniture. And I used to write on the dining room table because it gave me a view out the front windows and the back windows. So I could sort of keep an eye on my kids. And finally, I just needed a place to put my stuff. So we redid this room. My husband and I did it ourselves. I bought stuff on the cheap. And so this is where I write, and I love it. I'm right in front of a window. So I'm also like the nosy neighbor. I know when everybody goes for their walk. I know when they take their dogs out. So if anybody kills anybody, I'm the witness.
That's right.
So that's, yeah. And I almost, once in a while, I'll write on the porch. I have a screened-in porch, but I'm so sick of social distancing out on everybody's porch and yard that I don't do that for pleasure anymore. I only do that when I'm social distancing. So
Cool. So Lorraine, yeah, we were talking about process. So are you a plotter or pantser? And then sort of what is it, where do you write? What does it look like? Are you in flowing dresses and, cocktails and taking walks in the garden as the words just sort of leave your brain and go onto the page?
No.
Oh.
I'm a pantser. So very much so. I usually don't know what's going to happen until I sort of have a general idea of the story. Mostly I know the characters before I begin. I do work in an office, but yeah, I won't show it to you either. It's like, as I was getting ready for this, it was like, okay, I need a big box just to shove everything in so nobody will see what's on top of my desk. And so, yeah, I don't do, when we're not quarantining, I like to go get a massage whenever I get a block in my writing. I find that always helps me free up the creative aspects, but I haven't been able to do that either for quite a while.
how many massages does that end up being? Like
Oh,
a month?
a lot.
Wow.
A lot.
I like that process.
We should add that. Just add that. That would be great. There was one thing I made a note of and I forgot to ask, but I found it very interesting that all of you had characters in your stories who were writers, and I wondered what that was about.
Oh.
We channeling something, or is it just what do you think it gives a character to make them a writer? I was fascinated.
For me, Leela was inspired by a couple of women travel writers from that time period. Okay. So I looked at their original sources, and so she was inspired by that.
Okay.
So
for Jane, Jane and Winnie from the first book, they were both inspired to save their other friend who was taken out of society because of being caught in a garden in a compromising position. And so they saw a lack of this kind of information out in the universe, and they decided to make it themselves.
Like that. Yes, there's a trend with you and Diana in terms of people taking their careers into their own hands, I guess I should say. And what about you, Lorraine? With
I actually, when I was working on the other books, I had written a scene where one of the other characters was a writer, and I realized after I wrote the scene that it wasn't his scene, that it really belonged to Beast, and so based on his background and the things that he saw and what was very popular at that time. It just worked well for him to be a writer.
That was sort of really interesting, to read them all and then be like, oh, wait a minute. So thank you, ladies, so much. I think we're going to go to audience questions now. I have a few, if that's okay. Erica, wonderful Avon editor, has a question. Does anyone have any rituals before they start writing a new book? Light incense, buy a new notebook, clean off their desk?
I clean off my desk.
Before you start, you clean?
Before I start. And I have actually thought about doing a daily photo of the way it goes from clean to messy. By the time I get to the end, I don't know why I can't even bother to throw junk mail away. It just all goes into a stack and everything. Anyway, it's a mess, but I don't want you to see what it looks like by the end.
Vivienne, do you have any rituals before you start a new book?
I want to talk about Lorraine though. We should both do time-lapse photos from when we begin to when we end, because I'll have Post-it notes with scribbles from midnight, because I keep Post-it notes in like every room of the house. And I'll have like, what does this even mean? What did I write it with my left hand? So, no idea. So I'll have those. I'll have no idea what story it was supposed to go to. My ritual, I always cut my nails before I start a new story, before I start a new book. I don't know why. I like to have my nails short, and for some reason, just hearing my nails click on the keyboard, it just irritates me. So I cut them really short before I start every new book.
That I have not heard that one before. That's very interesting. Diana, what about you? Do you have any?
No, I don't really. I make sure I try to take 2 to 3 weeks off between books, and sort of not go near I write in my day job too, but I try not to go near the book so that it sort of starts to gel in my mind before I put it on the page. I'm usually, if there's a research book, like right now, the next book I'm going to write, the hero goes undercover as a footman. So I have a book, The Diary of a Footman from 1937. So I'm reading his diary right now.
Oh, wow.
And their life wasn't that hard. I'm just going to say the guy had a lot of time off. It's not like in our books. So, and he lived a pretty good life. But anyway, so basically I need that 2 to 3 weeks off to sort of reset, to sort of for me to miss the writing, so that I'm really excited to sit down and start. But otherwise, cleaning off the desk, I don't really have any other rituals, no.
Thank you, Erica. Janelle asked, how do you choose the time period you write in? So we'll start with Vivienne.
Oh, the clothes. I'm sorry, it sounds so shallow. But I love, starting off in the Regency era, they didn't wear any underwear. It makes love scenes so convenient. So, except for when you think about the men and how they had their shirts were so long that they kind of used those as underwear, and they bunched up everything in their trousers. That would just be so gross. I never a hero with really long shirt sleeves, so. I don't want to know about that.
Diana, how do you choose?
I fell in love with historical romance by reading. I only started reading romance about maybe 12 years ago, and I just happened to pick up a Regency, and I fell in love with the period, and everything I read. I like Victorian too, but the Regency, I like that it sort of transports you to another world. I think writing contemporaries, I admire contemporary authors because I think that's more challenging to make it feel real. And for me, I like sort of, it has that a little bit of a fairy tale quality because it's in another time, another place. It has rules. I like the rules because they help drive the plots. So I think that's what that's why I like that particular time period. I mean, if I had picked up another book, maybe I'd be writing in another time period. Who knows?
Lorraine?
Well, since I write Victorian, I have a long span of years that I can use. So a lot of times, whether I go with early Victorian or late Victorian depends upon what I need from a historical aspect for what I want to happen in that story. So, so usually sometimes it's just the research so that I can make it work with the story.
And that played a part in this story too. You wrote in your author's note at the end, right? That certain things happen, and, you know, we write stories so we can, you know, move something, zhuzh something, whatever. But yeah, that was really interesting too. The sort of all of you, so the extra research, and when you put in your author's notes, you know, I didn't want to stop reading. I just kept going, just kept flipping, hoping there was more. I would have taken a chapter on the next book. It was all good. Joy asked, where was the weirdest place and or event that sparked a book idea? Diana, you want to start?
Yeah, it's not a romance. It's my first mystery.
Okay.
And it was a story that I came across about a duke who was traveling somewhere, and he sees that out in the yard, one of the people who works with the horses is selling his wife. And this used to be a thing in England where you could sell your wife. You were still legally married to her. So the duke liked, you know, the woman's, you know, the way she carried herself. So he actually purchased her. And he claimed she was not his mistress, and that he sent her somewhere to better herself so she could learn how to talk and all that properly. But when his duchess died, he married her and made her a duchess. So for Murder in Mayfair, the protagonist, because he's an amateur sleuth, he buys the woman who becomes his, you know, partner in crime, love interest, when her husband is selling her in the square, but he buys her to save her from a worse fate. He wants to worse fate. He buys her to return her to her family.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Ooh. Lorraine, the weirdest place and or event that sparked a book idea?
I don't know that I necessarily have an event, but for this series, which has to do with baby farming in the Victorian era. So when I was writing The Earl Takes All, I was doing a search for Victorian baby formula because I was trying to figure out how my heroine would take care of her baby. And Victorian baby farming came up. And at that time, I had not heard of the practice. And I thought, well, what is that? And so I went down the research rabbit hole of, there were so many children born out of wedlock during this time period. And of course, it was so scandalous to have a child out of wedlock that a lot of times women didn't keep the babies. They needed someplace or someone to give them to. And so the more I researched that, the more I became interested in it. So yeah, it's always funny, the things that we'll start researching one thing and it'll end up taking us down a different path.
Yeah, I could totally see you starting to Google and then the other thing comes up and you're like, what? Say what now? And then you just, yeah, you're gone. And in that, I'm sorry. I'm not going to ask because again, we're not a month later, but there was something that happened in another sort of couple where I thought they could have had an entire book. I wanted to know all of the stuff that happened. Okay, yes, Vivienne, the weirdest place and or event that sparked a book idea.
Well, I was in an elevator and the doors weren't opening. I mean, it wasn't alarming, it wasn't trapped or anything. It took a little delay, but sometimes it just takes that little snap of a delay. And then I started thinking, I've read a lot of contemporary romances where they're trapped in an elevator, but what about a Regency? So that's where I wrote a Christmas novella years ago called The Duke's Christmas Wish. And it had one of the elevators. I did elevator research and they were just death traps. I mean, the elevator came into being like decades before the braking system for the elevator came into being. So if you can imagine that.
Like, good luck. Oh my gosh, that is crazy. I think it's one of the probably the interesting things about what we do is the research, like the things you find out and learn it's crazy. And sometimes, because I do write contemporary, I'll do research, like the book that's out, the character's a doctor. So I did a lot of research on medical school and that whole process. And by the end, I just thought I should not operate on anyone, but I felt like I knew a lot. I could talk with a doctor at a party and they may mistake me for a doctor, maybe. But yeah, the research is a lot of fun. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Okay. Such a book nerd asks, Lorraine, do you ever plan to write more Western romances?
Not at this time. I never say never, but it's not currently on my schedule.
Okay. I'm sorry, such a book nerd, but you can go back and read the other ones. They're still good. And the last one, I'm gonna try to squeeze in because I want to make sure everyone's question gets answered. Have you picked up any new hobbies in the last 7 months? So we'll round robin. We'll start with Vivienne. Any new hobbies?
No, I should probably pick up a cleaning hobby though. No new hobby.
No new hobby. She's been busy writing and drinking tea. That's a lot. That's a lot. Diana, any new hobbies?
I'm not a cook or a baker, but I am now. So because we weren't going out to eat, or the kids were, my kids are in college. We were supposed to be empty nesting. So when it was just me and my husband, we would, omelet is fine for dinner. Nobody really cares. But when the kids were home, I felt more obligated. So I just tried more things and I sort of got into it. I guess it was a way to be creative without leaving the house. And I have much better appliances now since the pandemic. I have a fancy coffee maker and I have a fancy blender now and a fancy food processor, things that I would not have had without the pandemic.
Lorraine, any new hobby or any new fancy appliances?
Yeah, it was funny that Vivienne mentioned cleaning, because actually what I've been doing is I've been learning how to really deep clean my house. So like once a week I go and do some research. Like, how do I get all that soap scum off the shower door easily? I want a quick tip. Make it all easy. So that's what I've been doing.
You could share those too, like the pictures of your desk. You could share, like, this is the tip I learned this week or something. People would like that too.
Well, that's an idea.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Like that.
It's like, yes. Okay, so that is all the questions. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you, Tracey.
I really enjoyed this. And I can't say enough how much I enjoyed your book so much. And yeah, they are wonderful. We could have talked more, but again, we didn't want to spoil anything. There are twists and turns and things happening, and we want you to experience those fresh without us ruining them for you. So please pick up a copy of each of these books. Hold up your books and see the beautiful covers. Yes, Avon is doing it. Yes. And thanks also to Love Sweet Arrow for having us. And we will see you next time.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Tracy.
Thank you,
Tracy.
Tracy. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.
Okay.
I'm leaving the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Me too.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay. Thank you, Lorraine. Bye.